Good afternoon, Alan Skinner here. Today's video discussion, I want to touch on the relevance of Western civilization by focusing on one facet of Bertrand de Jouvenel's discussion of the Greek and Roman basis for liberty, specifically responsibility. The narrow Greek definition of freedom rested entirely in those days on the assumption that men would use their liberty in a certain way. Quote there. War was a certainty in the Greek world, so each polis, city-state, organized its own hoplite phalanx, and freedmen, regardless of wealth and status, were expected to maintain their own arms and equipment, and periodically muster to perform drill. To avoid long periods of time away from the farm, the Greeks pioneered the idea of decisive battle to quickly settle wars. As articulated by Dr. Victor Davis Hanson, the Greeks adopted a, quote, deliberate attempt to harness the wild human desire for violence through the stark order and discipline of the phalanx. Of importance, each Greek soldier served freely while within the phalanx. Courses of action were routinely debated before battle, and senior commanders were subject to after-battle critiques by both their subordinates and also the political leadership. By contrast, the contemporary Persian armies were made largely of drafted tribal contingents, and with every soldier legally no more than a slave to the great king. When Greek met Persian in battle, the Greek hoplites fought for freedom from Persian domination, while the Persian soldiers fought because they were driven into battle. One such example is King Leonidas and his band of 300 disciplined soldiers holding off the army of Persian King Xerxes at Thermopylae. By their sacrifice, Leonidas' Spartans underlined the importance of freedom, liberty from domination by non-Greek. As in many other things, Rome adopted the Greek practice of decisive battle and disciplined initiative, rational inquiry, and innovation in war fighting. And parallel with the gradual shift from republic to empire, Rome's military steadily evolved over the course of a millennium from a citizen-based republican army to a professionalized army composed of men from across the empire. Even after Rome's decline, this practice of freemen submitting to military discipline as a means of protecting their property was carried on by the German successor states. Examples of what was to become known as the, quote, Western way of war abound. Charles Martel's defeat of the Moors at Poitiers and the Spanish conquest of Mexico, to name just two. As noted by Jeffrey Parker in the Cambridge Illustrated History of Warfare, Western civilization was made possible by the harnessing of technical and tactical innovation and unparalleled financing available from capitalism to support that decisive military force in the best Greek tradition. According to Dr. Hanson, Western military domination was directly attributable to the Greek-Roman traditions of training and discipline, external accountability, internal self-audit, and the free voluntary association of individual soldiers. Paradoxically, as evidenced by the two world wars of the 20th century, the Western way of war can also create industrially-sized carnage, thus making the prevention of future wars vitally important. Of importance to our discussion is the weakening of that Greek-Roman basis for liberty articulated by de Jouvenel. He noted the collapse of the Roman Republic came when the majority of its citizens no longer shared common interests and common burdens, particularly military service and the defense of their property and their own liberties. The professionalized Roman Empire army became increasingly detached from society and increasingly corrupt by politics. So a parallel is seen today with a professionalized military increasingly detached from its own society. Parker warns of such dangers, noting leaving the conduct of modern war to professional soldiers has rarely produced lasting victories. Instead, he argues for the importance of an unequal dialogue between generals and civilian leaders, with the ultimate decision-making still retained firmly within civilian control. Hanson affirms these concerns as well, noting the importance of institutionalized reform mechanisms, which again were derived from antiquity, specifically the subordination of military to civilian, critiquing actions both internal and external, and the ability even of the service members to correspond with their own civilian political leaders. So in closing, it's important to emphasize the importance of the Western way of war in establishing the dominance of Western civilization. Historians do warn us that civilians and political leaders must stay engaged with military affairs, while service members should strive to remain connected with the community and nation they're sworn to protect and defend. Thus, we should study and understand the philosophies and military underpinnings to Western civilization. Otherwise, we run the risk of going the way of the old Roman Republic, with liberty replaced with servitude to a tyrannical state. Thank you, and have a good day.